Tudor Dixon's dangerous budget plan could slash up to $500 million from state police across Michigan. The Michigan Association of Police Organizations says Dixon's approach would have a devastating impact on police budgets, leaving law enforcement crippled. Tudor Dixon's devastating plan would mean less cops on the street, making Michigan less safe.
And today we have a very special guest, Tudor Dixon. She is a Republican gubernatorial candidate from Michigan. Welcome, Tudor. What do you have to say?
Thanks for having me.
What do you have to say in response to this ad that PAC said?
Yeah, it's very interesting that they would come out and, first of all, attack me on such a ridiculous issue when it's actually their candidate who has come out and said that she believes in the spirit of defund the police, and they know that that is not my platform whatsoever. But I think the most interesting part about this is that we're in a primary. We're in a Republican primary, and we're seeing the Democrat Governors Association come out and put in $2 million in the last 7 days of the race to try to get me bumped out of the primary. So I think that's encouraging. They're worried about me going up against Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're seeing is, I know that you're the highest in the polls right now in terms of Republican candidates. Why do you think the citizens of Michigan look at you more favorably than the other Republican candidates? And do you think that's why the Democrats are scared of you?
I think it is, because my background is one of not only communications, but also manufacturing. So I come from a manufacturing background. Right now, the state of Michigan is really going after a lot of our small businesses like that, our large businesses and our small businesses. So I've put in the work in the last year of talking to business owners across the state, and they all say, listen, we're up against a government that is Big Brother constantly in our business, trying to get us shut down. And you get it. You understand that. So I think from that perspective, I have a knowledge of small business in the state that the other candidates don't necessarily have. And then I'm also a mom of 4 school-age girls. So as we've walked through this pandemic, I'm walking alongside those parents who are saying, gosh, our kids were kept out of school longer than almost any other state. They need to catch up. What can we do to get them caught up? And what is Gretchen Whitmer not doing? And I think they like that contrast of me as a conservative mom against Gretchen Whitmer as this liberal, far-left birthing parent, I believe is what she calls it these days.
So you recently got President Trump's endorsement, which is obviously huge for the race. What do you think that means to you personally, and then also for your chances in this primary? You just talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear kind of what that endorsement means to you.
Yeah, I know the president has been watching our race the entire time. Michigan is very important to him. It's very important to many people on the national scene. So for him to have watched all this time and come in with a few days left in the primary to say, you've really been able to accomplish a lot. I believe in your plan, and I believe you're the one that can go up against Gretchen Whitmer. That means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to the people of Michigan as well. We see a lot of people coming out and saying, you know what? If the president believes in her plan, I believe in her plan.
I love that. So she is the Democratic incumbent. So in your opinion, what are the biggest failures that you've seen from Governor Whitmer? And what are you going to do differently if you are the next candidate for governor?
There are plenty of failures. We go through COVID. That's just a giant failure of leadership and incompetence there, because if you look at what she did, I mean, everything from nursing homes, even when Andrew Cuomo decided to abandon this terrible nursing home policy, Governor Gretchen Whitmer doubled down. Schools, keeping our kids out of school longer than any other state. I mean, we even had some districts that closed down again in 2022, and she didn't come out and say, you got to open up. She was not fighting for students. She was not fighting for the elderly, who are the most vulnerable. And then our businesses, we met with the Restaurant Association, or with some of our restaurant owners last week, and they said, you have no idea how devastating this was. Our restaurants were closed down for 8 months totally, longer than any other state. They had these sometimes rules where they could open at 25%. And they said, look, you can't make money at 25%. And we still had to pay our property taxes. That's an example of one time when this governor was able to actually give relief to these people, even though they were shut down. The legislature passed a bill saying, we're going to allow property taxes to be extended for restaurant owners. She vetoed that. She vetoed help for students. She vetoed help for small businesses. The list goes on and on. So her record is atrocious. But what she continues to do is she continues to use this bureaucracy to reinterpret our guidance in the state of Michigan and go after businesses and say, you're not doing business exactly the way I want. We need to shut you down. We need to fine you. We need to cite you. And our businesses are sick and tired of dealing with that. But also, the record on education is extremely poor. We're 38th in the nation right now. All of the data shows that if we continue on this path, by 2030, we're going to be in the bottom 5 states in the nation. She has not come out with a plan to get education back on track. She's touting the fact that she's putting more money into education, but we don't have a root cause for why we're failing our students and what the corrective action is to make sure we get back on plan and make sure our kids have no wrong path in education in the state of Michigan. And I think that's the message really that we can go out to across the state and have people rally behind us.
You talked a little bit about money in the economic plans. You've been vocal during the campaign about your 25 by 25 plan and how that's going to grow the economy. Can you kind of explain that a little bit to our viewers and what exactly you would do if you were elected in that regard?
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that it is affordable to live here. So we have talked about the income tax. The legislature has already offered her 2 reductions in income tax that they've worked through the budget, not affecting any type of policing. They've worked through the budget to reduce the income tax, and she's vetoed both of those. So we know that's an option right away to help people in Michigan, to help them get more money back into their pockets. But another one is reducing regulation by 40% over the next 4 years and helping businesses to expand and be able to expand quickly based on the fact that there'll be fewer regulations. And when people get concerned about that, we have some pretty harsh regulations on businesses and business owners right now. We have a woman who has a hair braiding company or a hair braiding shop, and she wants to be able to wash hair, but she hasn't gone through the licensing process. She hasn't been able to pay the money to go through that. And because of that, she has to turn customers away. But that's a situation where I'm pretty sure we all know how to wash hair. So why are we making it so difficult for our entrepreneurs to start up their businesses and be successful? We can reduce that regulation. Another thing is we're a manufacturing state. That's our number one industry. We've removed a lot of our tech and vocational schools over the years. We want to bring those back, and we want to really promote that within our middles and high schools so that students graduating can look at this and go, oh, that's the right career for me. Maybe college isn't right for me, but maybe it is the right thing for me to go into a skilled trade. And then we can kind of boost up our manufacturing industry and make sure that we're strong there again.
That's great. What do you plan to do for education? You talked a little bit that Governor Whitmer is going to focus on that. What are you plan to do for that?
Yeah, so we'd love to see our students to be funded rather than our systems. Right now, we don't have choice in education to the extent that we would like. We'd like to have education freedom. We would like to have parents be able to choose what's best for their child. And it's especially important right now after COVID, because a lot of parents are saying, wow, my kid is not getting the right extra attention in the school that they're in, but I know if they were here, they would be able to thrive. So we want to see that, but we also want to see 25 hours of tutoring, take some of that COVID money and make sure that our students who were out of school for so long, and we know that in-person learning was so crucial and they did not get that we can supplement that with 25 hours of tutoring right off the bat.
So I was wondering, what role does faith take in your candidacy?
Honestly, I don't know how anybody does anything without faith, but for me, it's very important. And that was part of our decision in making the decision to actually run for governor, was sitting down and having a prayerful discussion about that, talking with the girls and praying with them. And then honestly, it's just one of those things that I live that every day. And I have seen so many times when I know that this has been a blessed campaign because things have happened in this campaign that I certainly couldn't have done on my own. And it's kind of neat to see those sort of biblical moments that you've only read about and go, wow, I've actually seen hearts open and minds open and this movement come together to bring back these values and make sure the state thrives and to focus on family in a unique way. It's been very exciting.
Yeah, along those same lines, I wanted to ask you about Governor Whitmer. Obviously, she's been staunchly pro-abortion throughout her entire tenure as governor, she recently vetoed some funding that would have gone to crisis pregnancy centers. What would you do differently in that regard in the fight for life?
Yeah, when you look at what she's recently done, you're talking about the pregnancy centers, but she also vetoed grants for parents who are looking to adopt. She also vetoed money that would go to women who are looking for, pregnant women who are looking for safe housing. So this is a situation where, like you said, it's pro-abortion, it's not pro-choice, this is pro-abortion. But for us, we want to make sure that we're building up the family. We want to make sure that people understand their options. She also vetoed funding if you were giving these young women education on adoption. So we want to make sure that young women are aware of what their choices are for adoption, that families around the state can adopt in an affordable way, and that we have safe housing, certainly safe housing for young women, but also that we're incentivizing businesses to come around families instead of saying, hey, you know what, we'll fly you out of state if you want to have no family whatsoever. Let's have a corporate America that loves working moms. And when I say that, I want to see companies that are saying, we're going to pay for your healthcare to have this baby. We're going to make sure that you have childcare, and we're going to make sure that you have family leave, and that we're going to be family friendly. And I'd love to incentivize those businesses to come to Michigan and make sure that we are a family friendly state.
Welcome to WJ Live. Today we have Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida's District 19. Welcome, Byron.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to be with you.
So just recently, we heard that Bank of America is now going to be releasing a controversial program specifically for Black and Hispanic communities. That is in quotes because that's exactly what they said. And I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on this, that they will be getting 0 down payments and no-cost mortgages?
Well, I mean, look, at first blush, my concern is those are the same types of mortgages that led to the housing collapse back in 2008, 2009. And so my biggest concern is what's the underwriting standard for allowing this to happen? And look, I'm a recovering banker. I was in commercial banking back during those years. So even as you explain this to me right now, I'm very concerned about what that actually means. Like, I know that people are struggling to get housing. People are even struggling to figure out how they're going to afford housing. But lending policies like that are simply not the way. We've already seen what that has done once. And my concern is it would lead to the same issues again.
How do you feel being endorsed by President Trump, and why do you think he chose you?
Well, I think it's an honor. I think that President Trump's recognized, how I've done the job and how I've gone about my business. And, he basically was like, you know what, this is the guy that needs to stay where he is and he endorsed me for re-election. So it's really an honor. Glad to see that he thinks so highly of me. But for me, the mission doesn't continue. The job's not done. And so we're just going to keep working hard and keep fighting to make sure that we get the policies in place that get our country, get our country back on track, number one, and then number two, allows our country to flourish and continue to be the best country in the world.
Biden just mentioned using a tactical fighter jet, F-15, in a speech recently. Do you think that he is declaring war on the 74 million Americans that voted for Trump?
I think in terms of political war, yeah, he's been doing that. But I think in terms of his rhetoric, I think his rhetoric is outrageous. For somebody who loves to try to blame Republicans as needed to be more responsible with their language, Joe Biden is never responsible with his. So his comments were ridiculous and they were outrageous. And frankly, this is the same gas-prone, terrible messaging from Joe Biden. Nothing new. He's done this his entire political career. And so I don't want to just push it aside as a nothing burger. Like, it matters because you have the president of the United States who literally doesn't even know how to talk about the Second Amendment, whether you're for it or against it. So bring up F-15s, I mean, that's just ludicrous and it's stupid. I don't know what the man is talking about, but listen, I love when he goes out and gives these speeches because it demonstrates to the American people that the current occupant of the White House is not with us.
There was recently a poll that came out from Alliance for Youth, and it showed that 56% of young Black voters will be voting Democrat, and the rest 30% will be voting Republican. How can we continue to win the hearts and minds of young Black voters?
Well, I think you just got to engage. And I think it's not just young Black voters, it's young voters in general. You have to engage young people. I think the days of just saying, oh, we'll just focus on senior citizens and people who are, later on with kids. I'm not saying you ignore those voting groups, but young voters vote, they're going to be voting more. I think we have to explain to them the beauty of free market capitalism, of a limited federal government, and what that means for real opportunities in the United States. I think what you're seeing with younger Black voters voting Republican is they've grown up in an America where they are free to choose and to be who they want to be. But if you have a heavy-handed government always bringing rules that make no sense, it actually stops opportunity. It halts the ability to achieve the American dream. I think that you have young Black voters who are seeing that, and I think that as long as Republicans continue to engage these communities, you're going to see these trends continue more and more.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you can come back again either before or after the general election.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you for joining WJ Live.